Today we are going to read A Long Walk to Water by Linda Sue Park, Chapter 4. Southern Sudan, 2008. Naya's mother took the plastic container from her and emptied the water into 3 large jars. She handed Naya a bowl of boiled sorghum meal and poured a little milk over it. Have you ever heard of sorghum? It's a product that is used to make cereal. So that would make sense that she would put milk on it. You can see the picture of it right there. Naya sat outside in the shade of the house and ate. When she was done, she took the bowl back inside. Her mother was nursing the baby, Naya's little brother. "Take Akir with you," her mother said, nodding towards Naya's sister. Glancing at her younger sister, Naya did not say what she was thinking. That Akir was only 5 years old and was too small and walked too slowly. Do you ever have to take a younger sibling or maybe a younger friend somewhere and you're like, this isn't going to work? So Naya already knows. Remember, she has to walk a long way to go to water. So she's worried that her 5-year-old little sister won't be able to stay up with her. "She needs to learn," her mother said. Naya nodded. She picked up the plastic container and took Akir by the hand. Home for just long enough to eat, Naya would make her second trip to the pond and back, to the pond and back. Nearly a full day of walking all together. This was Naya's daily routine, 7 months of the year. Daily. Every single day. So we learned some new things about Naya in this chapter. What are some of those things that we learned about her? All right, we're going to continue on with chapter 4. And before we start Salva's story in 1985, you remember at the end of the last chapter, it said these people were Dinka too. Could his family be among them? So we're going to see if this is his family. Salva held his breath as he scanned the faces one by one. Then the air left his lungs and seemed to take all hope with it. Strangers. No one from his family. The old woman came up behind him and greeted the group. "Where are you going?" she asked. A few of the people exchanged uneasy glances. There was no reply. The woman put her hand on Salva's shoulder. "This one is alone. Will you take him with you?" Salva saw doubt on the people's faces. Several men at the front of the group began speaking to each other. "He is a child. He will slow us down." "Another mouth to feed? It is already hard enough to find food." "He is too young to do any real work. He'll be of no help to us." Salva hung his head. They would leave him behind again, just as the others had. So this is the first time I'm really seeing a connection between Naya and Salva's stories, aside from obviously the setting. But Naya didn't want to take her little sister to go get water on her second trip because she's going to slow her down, take more time, cause her to do more work. And that's very similar to what's happening with Salva. He wants to join a group. He doesn't want to be alone. Yet others doubt him because he's a child. He's going to be slow. They're going to have to feed him. He can't really help. I can see some of those connections between those two characters. Can you think of any other connections that you've seen? All right, we're going to continue on. Then a woman in the group reached out and touched the arm of the men. She said nothing, but looked first at the man and then at Salva. The man nodded and turned to the group. "We will take him with us," he said. Salva looked up quickly. A few in the group were shaking their heads and grumbling. The man shrugged. "He is Dinka," he said, and began walking again. I like that. I like how the woman, looked at her husband and looked at Salva, and her husband automatically knew. Sometimes you can read body language with people, and they don't have to say any words. So sometimes maybe at school you're talking and you're supposed to be doing work by yourself, and I'll give you a look, something like this, and you're like, get back to work. Or sometimes, you might look and somebody's like, and that, they're excited for you. But sometimes we can do that silently. So I like that. Sometimes just a look. And I'm sure your people at home probably have some looks for you too, so you understand. All right, let's continue. The old woman gave Salva a bag of peanuts and a gourd for drinking water. So like a gourd, like a pumpkin, so she could, those they empty it out and they could fill it with water, so you can use that as a cup. He thanked her and said goodbye. Then he caught up with the group, determined not to lag behind, not to complain, not to be any trouble to anyone. He did not even ask where they were going for fear that his questions would be unwelcome. So he knows that he's lucky to be able to be in this group, so he doesn't want to mess it up. He knew only that they were Dinka and that they were trying to stay away from the war. He had been content with that. The days became a never-ending walk. Salva's feet kept time with the thoughts in his head, the same words over and over. Where is my family? Where is my family? Every day he woke and walked with the group, rested at midday, and walked again until dark. They slept on the ground. The terrain changed from scrub to woodland. So scrub looks like this, like a scrub forest, to woodland. So you can see, sleeping on the ground, he doesn't have those nice accommodations like I require when I go glamping. He's on the ground. So, that's hard. And then walking all day. So I would assume his body probably hurts. Wait, walking all day, long walk to water. That reminds me of Naya. Another connection. All right, so let's go on. The terrain changed from scrub to woodland. They walked among stands of stunted trees. There was little to eat, a few fruits here and there, always either unripe or worm-rotten. Salva's peanuts were gone by the end of the third day. After about a week, they were joined by more people, another group of Dinka, and several members of a tribe called the Jerkol. Men and women, boys and girls, old and young, walking to nowhere. I wonder what that means. Why do you think they're walking to nowhere? Does that just mean that they don't really know where they're going? They're just trying to stay away from the war. So that would also be tough for me because, like, for me, I need goals. I need to know where I'm going to, or I'm going to walk this path around, or I'm going to walk to this point and back, or I'm going to walk to my friend's house. So they're walking and doing all of this work, but they don't really know where they're going. And Salva doesn't dare ask because he doesn't want to be annoying like they thought he would be. So, wow, that would be really frustrating. And at this point, Salva had never been so hungry. He stumbled along somehow moving one foot ahead of the other, not noticing the ground he walked on or the forest around him or the light in the sky. Nothing was real except his hunger, once a hollow in his stomach, but now a deep buzzing pain in every part of him. Usually he walked among the Dinka, but today, shuffling along in a daze, he found he had fallen a little behind. Walking next to him was a young man from the Jerkol. Salva didn't know much about him except that his name was Buxa. As they walked along, Buxa slowed down. Salva wondered sluggishly if they shouldn't try to keep up a bit better. Just then, Buxa stopped walking. Salva stopped too. But he was too weak and hungry to ask why they were standing still. Buxa. See, I'm having trouble with this one. cocked his head, and furrowed his brow, listening. They stood motionless for several moments. Salva could hear the noise of the rest of the group ahead of them. A few faint voices, birds calling somewhere in the trees. He strained his ears. What was it? Jet planes? Bombs? Was the gunfire getting closer instead of farther away? Salva's fear began to grow until it was even stronger than his hunger. Then, a slow smile spread over Buxa's face. There, you hear? Salva frowned and shook his head. Yes, there it is again. Come. Buxa began walking very quickly. Salva struggled to keep up. Twice, Buxa paused to listen, then kept going even faster. What? Salva started to ask. Buxa stopped abruptly in front of a very large tree. Yes, he said. Now, go call the others. But by now, Salva had caught the feeling of excitement. But what should I tell them? The bird, the one I was listening to. He led me right here. Buxa's smile was even bigger now. Do you see that? He pointed up at the branches of the tree. Beehive, a fine, large one. Salva hurried off to call the rest of the group. He had heard of this, that the jerkole could follow the call of the bird called the honey guide. But he had never seen it done before. Honey. This night they would feast. That's the end of chapter 4. So they're going to feast on a beehive. I don't know if we know quite how many people are in this group, but do you think that's going to be enough food for everyone? I mean, Salva is walking. He is so exhausted from hunger and walking and sleeping on the ground and being worried about not knowing where his family is and just all of the trauma he's been in. And so it's great that they're finding food, but do you think this is going to be enough for them to be able to survive? I hope it helps them. So we'll have to see as we go on. That's it for chapter 4.